It was around 2015 and I was living in Seattle. I worked in an office that allowed me to bring my dog to work, a 100-pound German Shepherd. He's a big sweetheart but looks quite scary to strangers. After work one day, I got on the bus home, which was around a 45-minute ride. I noticed someone staring at me and didn't think much of it. While it's unsettling to be watched, I had my fair share of odd conversations on the bus and it wasn't out of the ordinary to encounter weird behavior. I honestly don't remember too much about his appearance, but I do remember thinking he looked fairly normal and didn't seem high or drunk. My bus stop was on a busy street in a bit sketchier part of town, but isn't frequently trafficked. When we reached the stop, my dog and I set off on the short trek home only a few blocks away. As I exited the bus, I noticed the man who had been watching me had exited too. Something was off about him. He seemed intent on keeping stride with me, trailing closely behind. I've heard advice somewhere in the past that you shouldn't go straight home if you're being followed. I'm sure that's situation specific and sometimes it's safer to be in your home, but nothing had happened besides having my personal space invaded and didn't feel immediately unsafe, so I opted not to lead the stranger straight to my door. I knew that my partner at the time wasn't at home, so I decided the best plan was to weave through my neighborhood for several blocks to try to lose him. I think a part of me was also wanting to be sure I was being followed at all, or if this person just happened to be walking in the same direction. After several blocks, it became clear that he was following me. I was weaving around erratically and he was walking the same path. Neither of us spoke to one another and I was becoming more and more frustrated that anyone would follow a woman home. The streets were quiet and I couldn't see anybody around who I could signal up for help. I don't think I would have been so surprised that this was happening if I was alone and without my dog. I can't imagine anyone in their right mind following someone with a large German Shepherd. I started walking faster when I rounded a corner and quickly ducked into a walkway hugging a duplex a block from my house. I was hoping the pathway would wrap around the house completely so I could get out of the line of sight of this person, but was met with a fence to my face and didn't have time to backtrack. I was ultimately cornered in the snook between a house, a fence, and a hedge. I crouched down with my dog and waited for the guy to pass us. I watched as the man strolled by the walkway, seemingly not noticing us at all. He didn't turn his head or even gaze in our direction. I decided that we would stay there for a few minutes just to make sure he was gone. Of course, my dog was as calm as ever, just chilling on the side taking a nap. Super helpful. About 3 minutes went by. Just as I was thinking it was safe to head home, the man stepped up into my line of sight. He didn't make eye contact with me just as he had the first time he walked by. He was moving calmly and deliberately and slowly came to a stop as soon as he's right in front of me, just off the curb. He was about 2 yards away, facing me and not directly looking, with just a sidewalk and a grassy strip between us. I watched him as he started to unload his pockets. He had a number of metal objects he was taking out, placing them in a line. To this day, I'm not sure what they were, but I'm glad I didn't find out. At this point, I called 911 and told them what was happening, that someone was following me and showing erratic behavior. The cops made it there quickly, and as soon as they pulled up, the dispatcher advised me to get out of there. I hailed out of my hiding spot and took a non-direct path home, since my house was technically in the line of sight of where I was crouched. I don't know what ended up happening with him, but fortunately, I never saw him again. I'm not sure if he was on drugs, mentally unstable, or both. I don't know if he had malicious intent. I do hope that he got the help he needed, but to the man who followed me home, that wasn't cool, and let's not meet. Many moons ago, when I was 15 or 16, I worked at Dairy Queen. The store was located on a street where taxis were always back and forth, so I never had to call a cab. I would just wait for one to drive by and hail it. My parents didn't drive, so we had to deal where they paid for half the cab ride. Whenever I worked the closing shift, midnight or later, depending on how long it took us to clean up, my coworker who lived right next door to the store would wait with me on the picnic tables until I was able to hail a cab. Late one night, while sitting on the picnic table, I noticed a car drive by us. It seemed to slow down but kept going. I don't know what made me notice it, but I did. Anyway, a taxi comes by and I hail it. My coworker, assuming I'm in the cab, goes home. I told the driver where I wanted to go, but he said he wasn't going that way, so I went back to the picnic tables by myself. I wasn't too concerned because, like I said, taxis would be up and down the street all the time. While I'm waiting, the car I had clocked earlier comes around the corner and pulls into the parking lot. Then the driver gets out of the car and starts walking towards me. To this day, I do not know why I didn't just run to my friend's house. He said, "It's kind of cold tonight, isn't it?" It wasn't, but I just agreed. Then he said, "It's kind of lonely too. Cue inner freaking. He went on to say, God told me to stop and talk to you. At this point, I saw a taxi pull into the parking lot across the street. I didn't say anything, but just staring walking towards that cab. Creep said, I can give you a ride. I said, no, that's okay. Then he said, I love you. I sprinted for that cab, probably broke world records, I swear. Jumped in the back of the cab and asked the driver if he was working and could he drive me home. He knew I was freaked out and got me home safely. I was so afraid that the creep would follow. After that,